Hey superstars, thanks for finding yet another video about teaching English in China. So as I've said in a bunch of my other videos that one of the main reasons to do this is the travel. Now, first, there's of course a lot to say about traveling in Asia, but this video won't really be a travel guide video about any specific countries or cities, mostly because I think the internet and certainly YouTube already has more than enough of this kind of thing. It's going to be more about what kind of opportunities you'll have to do that travel during your year abroad. Okay, so let's start. So let's say you sign up to do this for just the 1 year. Now, that's 12 months, but if you want to maximize on the travel aspect of this, we really need to talk about 14 months. That is, apart from the 12 months in China, there's the month before you arrive in China and the month after you finish working and you're on your way home. Now, in those 14 months, there is the potential to visit 7 different places in Asia. Again, that's 7 destinations in 14 months. Now, before we start, if you guys saw the video about money, I said that if you work in the public sector, you will have a lot of time off during the year to do your traveling. Now, if that's what you end up doing, you get a public sector job, you probably don't need my help with the travel part. So this video is going to be more about what happens if you work in the private sector. Again, these jobs tend to pay a little more, they are easier to get, and they hire people year-round. So now, if this is the case, the minimum amount of paid vacation time that you will get for the year should be no less than 10 working days. Now, even with this, there is still the potential to have 7 trips. Okay, so now how does this work? Behold, superstars, let's look at this timeline. We've got the 14 months, and again, your start date at the school happens at the beginning of month 2. Month 2 is when you start work. So at the beginning of month 1, you are still in your home country, and at this point, all of your documents are ready. You've got your work visa, and you're pretty much just waiting for your flight. And at this point, you should be arranging to have all of your things placed in storage, sold off, thrown out, or whatever you decide to do with it all. The other thing that you should really should do is go to your bank and set up your ATM card so that you can withdraw money overseas. Now about that. When you arrive in China, you're going to want to have access to about $3,000. This doesn't mean that you'll actually be spending all of it, and it certainly doesn't mean that you should be carrying all this in cash. You should not be carrying this much in cash. Anyway, $3,000 is a good amount for you to arrive with. Now, why is this? Okay, keep in mind, you will start work at the beginning of month 2. However, because of the way China works, you will probably need to arrive in China 2 weeks before your actual start date. Now also, in China, like many countries, you only get 1 paycheck a month, and you get that paycheck at the beginning of the following month. So if you start work in month 2, you won't get paid until the first week of month 3. So that means since you arrive 2 weeks before your start date, you might have to wait 6 to 7 weeks before your first paycheck. And because of this, you'll need enough money to set yourself up and keep yourself going for that initial period of time. That's why we say 3,000. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's get back to the talking about travel. Okay, so now here's destination 1. On your way to China, you go someplace else. Basically, don't buy a return air ticket from America to China. Instead, buy a one-way ticket from America to destination 1. And then another one-way ticket from destination 1 to whatever city in China you'll be working. Now, about that, let's be smart about this. When you're thinking about where you want to go for destination 1, keep in mind you will have a lot of luggage with you. If you're traveling alone and you're stopping somewhere you've never been, the last thing you want to do is haul around a bunch of heavy luggage, or worse, get it stolen. So destination 1 should not be a poor country. Instead, you should probably go someplace that's much more developed with a solid transportation network network between the airport and the city, places like Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Now, while we're at it, this is actually a good time to talk about Destination 7. In this case, you're on your way home, and again, you've got all that luggage. So, if on your way to China, you went to Japan, maybe on your way back to America, you want to stop at Korea or Taiwan or one of those other places. Again, you'll need to buy a series of one-way tickets depending on where you want to go. Now, as a recommendation, Hong Kong is probably a really good option for Destination 7. This is because during your travels, you will have collected a lot of different currencies from all the countries you visited. Hong Kong, because it's one of the most international destinations on the earth, it will be much easier to find a place that will accept and exchange even small quantities of foreign currency into the currency you want. Added to this is the fact that Hong Kong has got a great airport system, and the city itself is pure magic. Okay, next we have Destination 2. You have arrived at your new city in China. Welcome to your new home for the next 12 months. Here you will spend the first couple weeks exploring and looking around, getting your bearings and meeting your coworkers and learning the basics of how everything works in your new city. There's going to be quite a bit of paperwork in the beginning, and you will also need to go in for a medical exam. You will also be referred to work with a real estate agent to find an apartment, and this agent will also help you to register your new address with the local authorities. Here, we will also enter month 2, and at this stage, you will need to stay put for the first month while the authorities process your residency permit. You will also start work, and actually, it's a good idea just to stay in your city your new city for the first 3 months. This is because you'll need at least this amount of time to just get acclimated to the work. You'll need to spend some time building rapport with your students and workmates. And you'll also need to learn where everything is in the neighborhood you live, where to shop for food, where to get your haircut, the basics. Now, also during this time, your new workmates will be more than happy to recommend places around the city for you to visit. Also, China has got a pretty great high-speed train network, so you can visit nearby cities during your weekends as well. The train is pretty cheap. It's actually very reasonable. And every once in a while, there will also be a public holiday, and you might have yourself a 3-day weekend, which of course is a great chance to have a quick jaunt in a neighboring city. So maybe we can call these places destinations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, etc. Okay, so now after your first 3 months, we're now at the beginning of month 5. If you haven't done so already, this is about when you should start planning for Destination 3, your first big trip. So, if you work in the private sector, you probably work 5 days a week. So if you use 5 days of your vacation, you can add the 2 weekends that come before and after and have yourself a 9-day trip. Now, whether you stay in China or go someplace else, it's up to you, but really 9 days is long enough to see at least 2 cities. Anyway, so here you have a trip where you won't need to carry a lot of luggage, so you can feel free to get creative and have something like an adventure. Okay, next, we've got destinations 4 and 5. So in China, the 2 most important holidays are Chinese New Year, also called Spring Festival, and National Day. This is a peak travel period, and many locals get an entire week off work. However, since you work in the private sector, you might only get 3 days off. But that means you can have 2 more 9-day trips, and it will only cost 4 of your vacation days. You see how this works. You've got the 3 days off those weeks. You use 2 vacation days for each. You add your weekends, and voila, you've got 2 more big trips. Again, no need to carry a lot of luggage for these trips. So similar to Destination 3, you can go a little nuts. Now, of course, keep in mind your coworkers might also want to travel during this time, and your private sector school probably won't let all of you take vacations at the same time. So talk to your boss early. Also, this is peak travel season and Chinese folks love to travel. That said, air tickets to most places will be more expensive. However, because you are a US passport holder, you will have access to more places where, unlike a Chinese passport holder, you can travel visa free. Tickets for these places tend to be a little cheaper, so do your due diligence. Okay, next is Destination 6. This is going to be your last trip before you finish working. Now, at this point, you've got only one vacation day left, so what you're going to want to do is use it in combination with a 3-day weekend. This isn't very long, so this is probably a trip somewhere within China. Now, of course, China is a big place with a very long history. As such, there are a lot of great places to visit, and you will really be spoiled for choice. And actually, if all three of your big trips end up being in China, you will not run out of things to see or new foods to eat. What you'll find is that the more time you spend in China, the more it will unfold and you will start to see more and more of its depth and complexity. It's actually one of these places that's really hard to explain. It's definitely its own place and it's totally unapologetic about it. Now, during your time there, you'll also have the chance to talk with your local Chinese workmates who will be happy to provide insights about China itself, how things are done, and certainly how things are not done. These will be some of the funniest and most interesting conversations you will ever have. And the people you meet there will be some of the most surprising, unexpected, unusual, and sometimes the most fascinating, hilarious people you'll have the chance to meet. Now, of course, no place is perfect. There will be times when you find it difficult or challenging, certainly how they do things in China. But I've always found I got better results when I asked questions rather than asserted my own beliefs about how things ought to be and why the Chinese way isn't correct. Actually, doing that really isn't the best way to go about it, especially in China. Again, it's its own place and they have their own way of doing things. Okay, so back to talking about travel. So now the way I've structured these 7 trips, again, I've just listed them as potential options, okay? They are your vacation days, not mine. So of course you can use them in any way you wish and in any order you wish. And actually it could be that your particular situation doesn't lend itself to all 7 trips. It could be that your first couple months overlap with one of the big holidays, in which case you might not go anywhere, or at least not go anywhere far away. Or maybe you start dating someone there, which might totally complicate your travel schedule. It will all really depend on a number of different things. So, okay, guys, so what I've done here is basically presented to you just one set of options, whichever you choose, though. I have no doubt that you'll be able to figure something out, and I'm super sure that you'll have a bunch of new experiences and that you will have a ton of fun. So, okay, guys, there's of course a lot more to be said about this, and of course a lot to say about each and every place that you might choose to travel. Asia is a big, awesome place, but really, there's already a lot of information out there. So I'll leave it to you to research on specifically where you want to go. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. Teaching in China is totally awesome. Traveling in Asia is way just great. Let us know if and when you're ready to go for it. Okay, that's all for now. We will see you next time.